All right. Hey, Vikings fans. Welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, we do. And the beer we had tonight was a fantastic Iowa Amber from Adventurous Brewing.
Yeah, and oddly enough, we talked about the possibility of Justin Jefferson representing our great nation in the Olympics to win a gold medal in flag football.
Man, that'd be super awesome. But before we get to that, we also mentioned the hottest team in Minnesota right now, the Timberwolves, who I think are going to drop game one.
Yeah, it's not looking too good right now. Hopefully they can pull it out. Even if they drop the first game, hopefully they can win a few more in the series. But we also gave our full thoughts on the NFL schedule release, specifically as it pertains to the Vikings. We spent some time talking a few episodes about the opponents the Vikings would face, both road and away. Or that's the same thing. Yeah. Both home and road. But anyways, now we know when those games will happen. We know for sure that there are two international games back to back. It's going to be an interesting year for the Vikings.
Can't wait. But until then, grab a cold one. Join us.
Skol.
Skol. So, Evan, you brought us the beer tonight. Tell us about what we've got.
I did, yeah. So I was scanning the shelves at the local Hy-Vee.
I love that place.
Oh, it's so good. Big, huge shelf of beer. If you've never been there, you should check it out. But anyways, I found another Adventurous beer, and I think actually a couple weeks ago we had Adventurous on the show. They're right here in Bettendorf, Iowa. This is like right down the street from us. We've been there several times. And this is their IOWA Amber Ale. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to spell it out. I think it's a play on the IOWA chant that they do at Hawkeye games.
I've heard that many a time.
So, anyways, it's not Iowa. It's not the Iowa Amber. I think it's the IOWA Amber.
So I think I've ordered this before. I think I've had it once, but if I have, it's been a while, and I'm pretty sure I have because I think when I ordered it, I was really cheesy about it, and I said the IOW Amber. And now that I'm thinking about it, at the time, I thought that's how it was called, but I think they gave me a weird look. So Adventurous, I'm sorry for saying it wrong in there. But yeah, the IOWA Amber, that's just, I don't know. Either way, it's going to taste good, I'm pretty sure.
It's an amber beer that's a play on the Iowa Hawkeyes. I don't know. We'll have to ask them how you're supposed to correctly say the name of the beer.
Adventurous. Tell us how to do that.
But you know why I picked it up, right?
Well, you love ambers.
It's an amber beer.
You're a simp for amber beers.
Admittedly,
did I say that right?
Admittedly, I don't know. I'm not up with the slang.
I think that's old slang at this point.
Admittedly, I'm not a big Hawkeye fan, but I love a good amber beer. So when I saw this, I was like, hey, we got to try that. And I haven't had it yet. So yeah, here we are.
Well, it's definitely amber in color. Oh no, what did I do?
Overflow.
It's not a bad overflow. I think I overreacted, but I will need a paper towel. But yeah, it's got a good amber color. Even the foam has a nice almost tan color, which I feel like foam is usually just white. This is nice to look at.
Yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube or our Spotify video, you can see that nice brown caramely color and good head retention on the foam there. I'm excited to try this.
Me too.
This is definitely my style of beer, for sure.
And I like ambers too, but if one of us is an amber fan, it's you. We both are, but you more so than not. I think we just need to dive into this, even though mine is very foamy right now. I went a little overboard.
You're going to get a bunch in your mustache.
I love that so much. I actually hate it. Skol.
Skol. All right, we're going to give a quick shout out to show sponsor, Big Top Ventures. If you're looking to take an all-inclusive trip to Mexico or Jamaica, we're going to flash their email right down here, bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Send them an email, let them know when you're looking to take a trip, and they'll hook you up with the best rates possible for that all-inclusive trip to Mexico or Jamaica. So shout out Big Top Ventures. Thanks so much for sponsoring today's episode.
Mostly foam is what I got, but darn it, that's some of the best foam I've ever had.
That's got a really rich flavor. I like that a lot. It's sweet, but it's also got a little bit of that hoppy bitterness to it as well.
Yeah, there is a little bit of hoppiness to it, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
Not quite as like hoppy amber as like an Arms Race for Big Grove, but still kind of more well-rounded than I thought it would be. Very nice. And not as dark as an amber beer as I feel like you've gotten before.
Right.
But really good. Full flavor. I feel like it full-sended on the darker flavor. And I like that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I like that too. There's definitely like that roasted maltiness to it as well, and that's what I like too. We're kind of getting into more some bonfire season again, so like I think this would be a good one to kick back around the fire and have a few and have some good chats with people on those cooler spring nights, early summer nights. So
and I don't think we've mentioned this is 6%, so perfect. Right in the wheelhouse. Not quite a headache beer. It could be. You can make any beer a headache beer if you really try hard enough. Excuse me, I just burped. Apparently it's a burp beer. But yeah, 6%. If you're gonna have a 4-pack, you can do that by yourself in an evening and probably, feel pretty decent the next morning. And yeah, I like everything about this beer. I really like that it has that hint of hoppiness too.
Yeah, it's a well-rounded beer for sure. So thanks, Adventurous, and looking forward to enjoying that for the rest of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got some news. We haven't recorded in, I think, a couple weeks, a little over 2 weeks now, but the NFL world keeps moving on. One big thing happened today, which seemed like it was kind of a foregone conclusion when the Olympics announced that they're going to add flag football to the run of sports that they're going to host. I think 2028 is the first time it's going to be featured in the Olympics. And the NFL today, along with the NFLPA, voted unanimously to allow NFL players to participate in the flag football, kind of like basketball players can play in the Olympics and other sports too. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, honestly, didn't think that it would go any other way.
Sure.
I think it's a huge PR thing for the NFL, and if you know anything about the NFL under Roger Goodell, you know that anytime he can get exposure, anytime he can get any sort of recognition or any sort of advertising opportunity or whatever, he's going to take it. Anything that's going to bring money in for the league, he's all for it. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to do that. So what's interesting to me is that all the NFL owners voted unanimously, 32-0, to approve this. I wonder if there was any dissension in the ranks, if there were any owners that were on the fence or adamantly no, and if Goodell had to pull them aside and be like, hey, this is why this is a good idea,
worldwide.
I don't know. Maybe it truly was unanimous and they were all like, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. This makes total sense. It's going to happen in our off season. And, it's only a select number of players. It's not like it's this huge swath of players from the league that if they all got injured, the league would be totally different the following season.
That is, I think you just hit the nail on the only real concern I would have is injury. So this would be a Summer Olympics thing, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So it would be, definitely dead in the off season of the NFL. However, any player that participated, it would probably alter their participation with their team a little bit. I don't know if OTAs would be affected for them or training camp even, but that's the end of July. I don't really know exactly when the Olympics land. I'm not a huge Olympics fan.
I think it's usually July.
Okay. So there's a potential. June, July. Potentially it could affect a little bit an NFL player's schedule with their, NFL team, but something as cool as the Olympics, I don't really think that will be a huge difference.
Yeah, it's late July 14th through the 30th in 2028.
Okay, and I think NFL training camps, don't they usually start the last week of July at the earliest? So maybe no difference at all. The only thing, was getting to and you hit at was injury. Can you imagine if, like, yes, I think flag football by its nature is a non-contact sport, but some of the most gruesome, long-term injuries you can have are non-contact.
Yep.
An Achilles tear is a non-contact injury most of the time.
You and I 2 years ago watched Kirk Cousins' Achilles just pop, and there were guys trying to tackle him, but it wasn't because of their tackling that it popped. He just moved the wrong way, and there went the Achilles.
And granted, that's kind of a fluke injury, but still, an ACL tear, that is typically a non-contact injury.
There's going to be a lot of, misdirection, trying to stop, pivot, hit and turn, whatever. So
I think we're both totally for this, for NFL players being in the Olympics. I think it's pretty cool. If I had any reservations, it would be for injury. Also, it sounds like each team is going to be limited to having one participant on their team to be even eligible for our country's flag football team. However, I think I did see something too that every team gets like a roster exemption for the international player program or whatever, and that player could play for their country's flag football team if they wanted to.
And there's also another limitation that for each country, rosters will be limited to 10 players. So for the U.S. team, that means only a maximum of 10 players and only a maximum of 10 teams.
10 NFL teams would be represented. Yeah.
So, and it's not even, I guess, a maximum. It's 10 teams will be represented because one player from each team can be on the team and only 10 players can be on the team. So there will be 10 different NFL franchises. And again, I think those limitations are what makes it a little more palatable for owners. Like, if you're a Vikings fan, for example, and let's say Justin Jefferson is the designee from the Vikings to play, and shoot, he'd be a great option.
Sure.
I think he'd be really good. And I think wasn't he there at the press conference?
So about that, I think Jefferson and then Brian Aspinall was there. But the NFL owners meetings are happening like in Minneapolis right now. So like basically on the Vikings facilities is where these meetings are happening.
Sure.
So when they announced it, they have NFL players from the Vikings
from that franchise
ready to go and step up. And lo and behold, one of the NFL's faces of the Shield happens to be a Viking. So it only made sense for him to walk over across the street, I think, and help the announcement. But yeah.
So anyways, all that to say, I think all of those limitations are what makes it palatable, because let's say Justin Jefferson does get that roster spot on the Olympic team. He does go and play, and God forbid he gets hurt in some way. That's obviously devastating for Vikings fans, but it's not like it trashes the whole product for all fans of all teams for the entire season, right? Like if it were like, oh yeah, we can field 10 quarterbacks, we can field 10 running backs, 10 wide receivers, we can get the best, cornerbacks and safeties from all over the league, and now all of a sudden you've got 10 guys that got hurt and they're some of the 10 best players in the league. That's going to leave a sizable hole. And so I think these limitations make it a little easier to make it happen.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point too. Like you just listed off a bunch of tackle football positions. I won't pretend to be an elite flag football mind. Obviously, there's quarterbacks in flag football and wide receivers. I'm pretty sure running backs are a position, maybe. But I don't know exactly. I didn't know until a little while ago that a 10-man roster is all that the flag football team is.
So there are I'm Googling this, and I could be wrong, but Google says there will only be 5 players on the field: a quarterback, a center, wide receivers. So I'm guessing 2 wide receivers and a running back on the offensive side, and then all of the defensive players are defensive backs.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, wow.
So I don't think there are any down linemen on the defensive side of the ball, and you pretty much just have corners and safeties. Corners are, probably one-on-one on your receivers, and maybe one's a spy or something to sit and watch the running back, see what they do, and then the safeties are just back to prevent anything deep from happening.
Yeah.
So,
but all that to say, like, the best Viking right now is probably Justin Jefferson. We don't know if the best Viking flag football player would be Justin Jefferson. Like I said, I'm not going to pretend to know all the details about, the whole sport of flag football. For all we know, somebody like Ty Chandler would be the best flag football player that's currently on the Vikings roster. I don't know. I feel like quarterback would be pretty universal for that, but are quarterbacks in flag football allowed to rush whenever they want, and are they kind of held back? If that's the case, you'd probably want to pick an athletic quarterback. Would Lamar Jackson be the best flag football quarterback of all time? I don't know, but there are some differences there. I know it's not a full 1-to-1, and that flag football in the Olympics will be a different sport than we watch on Sundays in the fall in the NFL, but I'm all for it. I do think teams may be a little bit more protective of their superstars. I don't think the Chiefs will probably be hesitant to throw Pat Mahomes out there.
For sure.
He might be the best flag football quarterback of all time. I don't know, but I feel like the Chiefs, with a $500 million investment in that guy, might have some hesitancy to throw him out there to potentially tears ACL.
But I'll play devil's advocate for a minute, not necessarily because I disagree with you, but for the sake of argument, I could also see those players saying, and I could see Patrick Mahomes saying, you know what? I've done pretty much all there is to do in the NFL. Yeah. Let me go play for gold.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other side too.
Let me do it. And if you don't, then screw it. I'm not signing with you next year. I'm going to leave. I'll go somewhere else where they'll let me do that. Yeah. I feel like there's going to be there could be, I don't know, could be totally a non-issue, but there could be some of that power struggle too, where players might want to do that. They've seen a lot of these guys grew up watching the dream team play basketball and go win gold for the U.S. And now recently, again, the U.S. got to do it again this last year, or in the 2024 Olympics, right?
Did they? Yeah. I'm pretty sure they did. Pretend to know enough about it. Yeah, I think so. I know in our lifetime, the U.S. basketball team has won gold more than a few times.
That was I remember watching it. It was one of the greatest games I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't Anthony Edwards on that team? And,
he was, and they won.
Yeah, okay.
They won. So, yeah.
I can promise you, though, if the 92 Dream Team, if everybody on that court just ravaged their ankles and ACLs, USA basketball would not be full of NBA players for the rest of history. And I'm not predicting this. I don't think it's going to be an injury fest in flag football. We would already kind of know about that, and the NFL owners would have known about that before they voted today. But if somebody like Justin Jefferson made the U.S. team for flag football and then went out there and had a 1 or 2 year setback injury just because of flag football in the Olympics, I bet you a lot of NFL superstars would be more hesitant to go out and play it. Or maybe not, but I would.
I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens this go around, and then I think when we come back around to it again in 2032, there will be a lot. I think it'll be even more interesting because now 10 players from the NFL will have gone through it, possibly more with those international players. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what effect it has on the league. I think the other thing, too, that I keep forgetting about, but it's one of the most obvious things about the Olympics is it's not every year.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not every July, 10 of the best players in the NFL are going to go represent the U.S. in the Olympics. It's every 4 years. It's guys might do it twice in their careers, in their pro football careers, and then they're done. And so again, that's where I could see the players, and maybe the NFLPA even gets involved a little bit and says hey, you have to you can't, owners, coaches, GMs, you can't just sit Justin Jefferson down and say, no, you can't do this. If he wants to, he should have the opportunity to, and he needs to understand the risks, and he needs to understand if we can't count on you this following season, the 28-29 season, well then, there may have to be some repercussions in terms of your contract and how we negotiate that moving forward. But as long as you understand those risks, and as long as you understand, the liability behind all that, go.
Yeah.
Have fun.
And one difference,
gold.
one difference between football and basketball specifically, which I feel like basketball is the closest like Olympic comparison, because,
sure.
and hockey, I guess too, is up there. Maybe hockey more so than anything, but basketball, the elite of elite basketball players, their careers are longer typically than, you know, the average NFL player. And even in the elite of the elite NFL player, they don't have typically like LeBron James like length careers. So LeBron, he's probably been to what, at least 4-ish Olympics at this point, if not more.
Ooh, that's a good question for
but
Google.
Just his, you know, the nature of basketball, you're going to play longer, and then if you're really good, you're going to play that much longer. Whereas the NFL players,
You're right.
4 Olympic games. Okay,
He's been in 4.
NFL players like Larry Fitzgerald, who played 15-ish years in the NFL. I mean, you're talking maybe 3-4 chances at Olympic berths, and he was one of the longest tenured wide receivers there was. So,
and all of that is if he's selected, if he wants to, if his coaches and owners would be willing to, right? And we just don't know anything like that. Like, we don't know what will happen with that, and we don't know if ownership, if coaching, if GMs will push back against that. I don't know.
Well, and I think the NFL owners showed today how much pushback they're going to give. They gave a unanimous yes, let's do it. So I don't think there's much pushback. And as you brought up kind of a contract situation, I think you have another example also with basketball, probably with hockey too. I don't know enough about those contracts for those players, but it's been a reality. The Olympics have been a reality for long enough for those sports that I wouldn't be surprised if there is some verbiage in, Olympic injuries, in these contracts to kind of, for the NFL to kind of mirror itself off of. If nothing else, they can ask questions and see how other leagues have done it in the past. Overall, I think we're all for it. It'll be exciting. The only thing is, I don't know if I could root for the USA team if, the Packers quarterback is the quarterback there, but that's another conversation for another day.
You'll root for your country. You're a patriot. I know you will.
Oh, man. I don't know.
Not a Patriots fan. You are a fan of America.
The America. This isn't just any America.
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 Another quick talker, really quick, and we're kind of following the live game cast of this right now. Timberwolves are in the conference finals, Western Conference Finals, taking on Oklahoma City in game 1.
Yeah. And at this moment, midway through the third quarter, the Wolves are up by 4 against the favored Thunder.
The 1 seed in the West.
Yeah. So I'm not hiding any secrets here. I'm a diehard Vikings fan, and I don't really love any other sport than football. But if I was going to be a fan of any other, professional team, it's going to be the Minnesota team. I am very much a fair weather Twins fan, fair weather Wild fan, fair weather Timberwolves fan. I won't lie that I've watched a few Timberwolves playoff games recently and even last season, and I'm in. I'm all in. Let's go. Wolves back. Let's go. So I'm rooting for it. I want the Timberwolves. If we can only get one championship as Minnesota fans, and it's got to be the Timberwolves, all right, fine. I'll take it at this point.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. I mentioned this before we started recording, but I saw a tweet today that said something like, the Timberwolves have done a complete lap around all of the other men's professional teams in Minnesota in terms of making a conference finals appearance or a semifinals to the final, the championship round in their respective sport. So they've been to the conference finals now 2 years in a row.
Yeah. I'm looking it up now. I think Leighton Glodek, friend of the show, Leighton Glodek.
Is he the one that posted that?
No, but he posted something somewhat similar. So Leighton's, I think, 10 years younger than we are. Okay, so earlier today, he tweeted and said, also, he changed his name on Twitter to Leighton James. So like a LeBron James type thing. It's throwing me off. But he tweeted earlier and says, today marks the 4th time I've been able to watch and remember, a quote-unquote Big Four Minnesota sports team in a conference championship. So we're 10 years older than him. We could probably say one or two more times, maybe. I don't know.
We were babies when the Twins went to the World Series, but that was like 1990 and 1991.
Yeah, if that was the Vikings that won it in 91, I'd totally claim that. But yeah, so we're probably in the same boat as Leighton here, as the fourth time we've been able to watch, Minnesota teams, in the conference championship of their sport. He also says, compare that to a Boston fan in that same timeline. They've seen it 24 times.
Jeez.
Then he said, I need this. We need this. Minnesota needs this. So yeah, I think Leighton really just embodied every Minnesota fan when it comes to any Minnesota sports team, specifically the Timberwolves today.
Yeah, definitely cheering for them. Hope they can pull it off. I've watched a few games. Unfortunately, a lot of the games start so late, and I go to bed early. I'm getting old, so I can't stay up that late. I got to be at work at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, man. How do you survive?
It's a challenge, but we make it work. Anyways, they've been a fun team. I mean, the few games I've watched, they've been a fun team to watch, and yeah, I'm behind them all the way. I honestly don't know anybody that plays for Oklahoma City.
I mean,
who is their big star? I don't even know.
Good question.
Which is why it's surprising to me that they're the 1 seed.
I think
I'm looking at it here.
The one name I've heard, and I'm gonna butcher it. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is the one name of theirs that I've heard before. But yeah, other than that,
they just
Chet Holmgren.
Nobody knows who those guys are,
and you can't take anything from them. Yeah, they should be the better team, and Minnesota at this moment is up by 2 on them.
And maybe that's one of the fatal flaws of the NBA is they've become such a star heavy league that if LeBron doesn't play for you, if Steph Curry doesn't play for you, if Jason Tatum doesn't play for you, if fill in the blank with flavor of the week, big time
Jason
all-star.
Tatum won't be playing for anybody for a while.
I know, but he was the first name that came to mind.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But the point stands, right? OKC doesn't have any of those big names. I don't know any of those guys on that roster.
And that could be us not being diehard basketball fans.
Yeah, maybe Jalen Williams is the only name that kind of stands out to me on that roster. But even then, I couldn't tell you, here's where he went to college, and here are his career stats. And I don't know enough about basketball to know really any of that. But, I know some stuff about some of those other guys. I know about LeBron and coming from Akron, and I know Steph Curry going to Dayton, and, I don't know. I have a little bit of context with some of those other guys, but
and I mean the Timberwolves too. They've got a few big name superstars. Anthony Edwards. I feel like we as Minnesota fans just kind of take him for granted as, oh yeah, he's super good, but he's on our team. I'm sure, other people don't know about him. No, he's one of the superstars of the league. I think he won a gold medal with the NBA basketball, USA basketball last year.
And
so
Rudy Gobert has had a good season. Mike Conley's, he's a veteran player, and I think he's widely respected in the league as one of those guys that just puts his head down and works hard. Nas Reed, 6th man of the year last year, and I think he's in line for it again this year. And then of course
2 words,
Nas Reed. A bunch of other players too for Minnesota, like Dante DiVincenzo, Luka Garza. I don't think he plays much, but a former Iowa guy.
Luka Garza is the best Luka in the league, and I'll fight you if you have any other opinions about that.
And I mean, that's not to take anything away from Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle.
We get it, Evan. You can read the roster. It's okay.
They're good. I know these names. If I were sitting in a bar talking about the Timberwolves and I didn't have my laptop in front of me, I could tell you their names. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make, because I don't know any of the names on the other team. So, anyways, the NBA, it's not my thing. I'll never be all in with the NBA like I am with the NFL.
Oh yeah, me too.
But go Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely go Wolves. I just want to see a Minnesota championship. The Timberwolves could win the next 20 NBA championships, and I'd be super happy about it. But it would mean nothing to one Vikings Super Bowl, and you might agree with me on that one too. So all of the other big four the other three of the big four sports could win the next 5 championships in their sports, and I would be cool. It'd be awesome. But
I can tell you there's a short list of things that I would like take a day off of work for, like when it comes to like they won the championship. Number 1 is a Vikings Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh,
I will take that following Monday off. I don't care. If I'm still in the classroom teaching and I need to write sub plans or whatever, I will do what I need to do. I'm not coming to work that day. If UNI basketball ever makes it to the national championship, they would play on a Monday night because that's when the national championship is currently played in NCAA basketball. I would take that whole day off and probably the next day too. Like that would be another one where it's like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. My alma mater is going to play for a national championship, which I don't know that I'll ever have the opportunity to say, but that'd be pretty darn cool.
They've been good in other sports too, but I think UNI's got a decent wrestling program too. But anyways, I agree with you. I probably wouldn't take the day off for anything UNI related. But if the Vikings ever make it to the Super Bowl, the first thing I would do the next work day I have would be to submit, for the day after the Super Bowl. And I know that would be like 2 weeks later, but I wouldn't even need them to win for me to take the day off. Like the last thing I'd want to do if the Vikings lost a Super Bowl is go to work the next day. So I promise, if the Vikings ever make the Super Bowl, I will not be working the next day.
So this is maybe a good question for our viewers out there. Drop a comment. What would cause you to take a day off of work? What sports related, like big monumentous thing would cause you to call into work the following day?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's not very hard for me to agree to take a day off of work. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, let us know, would a Vikings berth in the Super Bowl be enough for you to take the day off?
But I mean,
that would be for me.
I'm talking about like automatically, like you won the NFC Championship game. The Vikings are going to the Super Bowl. Not you, the Vikings did. But like on that night after the NFC Championship game, you've already submitted your absence, or like same for me, like with UNI basketball. Like if they won a Final Four game, as soon as that game hit zeros, I'm off of work and I'm like looking for tickets probably. Like I want to be in attendance if I can. Like, and if I can't, I'm going to go wherever I can to watch the game with some of the people that will be on my side and go to Cedar Falls and watch it up there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Instantly, I will not be working the day after the Vikings ever play a Super Bowl if that ever happens. That's a promise. I don't care if I have to take an unpaid day to make that happen. I won't ever have that. But immediately.
Well, speaking of the Vikings and getting back to, because we really haven't spent a ton of time talking about the Vikings. We've talked about
for the last few minutes, it's been that's true. Talked
about the Timberwolves, even though we're not a Timberwolves podcast. The Vikings' full schedule came out. All the NFL schedules came out last week, and we haven't really had a chance to dive deep. I know in episode 89, we spent some time talking about the opponents, because at that point we knew who the Vikings would play. We just didn't know when, and we didn't know in which order those games would occur. And now we do. And we've had some interesting developments, like 2 games back to back in weeks 4 and 5 in Europe. Week 4 in Dublin against the Steelers, and then week 5 in London against the Browns, followed by a week 6 bye, kind of like last season where they played the Jets in London and then had a week 6 bye as well.
Yeah, that is true. Like I knew they played the Jets. It just, things have melded together for me. They will go abroad now 2 seasons in a row, let alone back-to-back weeks in a row. And we kind of did talk about that. Remind me what your initial thoughts were because it was still kind of rumored in episode 89. It was kind of rumored that this could happen. We kind of talked about it. What were your thoughts on if that did happen? I
didn't think it was a huge deal, honestly. I felt like I I think what I said, and we could go back and fact check this and re-listen to the episode, but
you actually said you hated it.
No, I'm pretty sure I liked it. I didn't say I liked it. I said I don't think it'll be a big deal, is what I said.
Okay.
Because I think Kevin O'Connell specifically as a head coach has done a really good job of managing these international road trips really well. And correct me if I'm wrong, has he lost an international game yet?
I don't think he has.
I think we looked that up the last episode too. I don't think he's lost an international game yet. I could be wrong, but anyways, while you look that up and fact checked that, I think Dublin and London, if I know my geography correctly, they're in the same time zone. Obviously, they're different locations. Ireland and London are in different countries, but I really don't know that it'll be a huge deal in terms of the the wear and tear on the players, the jet lag, the whatever. I don't know how they'll handle that, if they'll find a central location that's outside of both Dublin and London where they can kind of set up camp, and then they can fly or bus to one game and then come back to their camp, and then fly or bus to the other one and then come back. I don't know how they'll do that.
Yeah. I feel like that would be smart. Also, they're the away team, so I know the home team over there gets first pick for hotels and stuff like that. I don't know how that would affect back-to-back stays, but it would be smart to have a home base. And I did look it up. It looks like Kevin O'Connell is 3-0 in London games, so that's the only place.
I don't think he's played anywhere else as a head coach.
Yeah, and the Vikings and Steelers, I'm pretty sure, will be the first teams to play in Ireland, right?
Yeah, that could be right. I also know that the Vikings are the first team in NFL history to play 2 games back-to-back in separate countries.
Yeah.
So, and I really think that's overhyped for what it is, because Ireland and London are in the United Kingdom.
Yeah. If you want to go that crazy, they're going to play the Bengals in the U.S. on week 3, and then go to Ireland and play the Steelers, and then go to London and play the Browns. So 3 different countries, and I know London's a city, but 3 different countries in the span of 3 weeks. That's wild.
Yeah. So I don't know that it'll be super crazy. I think KOC manages that really well. I think the staff manages that really well. It will, probably cause some issues with some players, and, maybe somebody gets sick or somebody struggles to, adjust to the time change or whatever. And there's always the emotional element too of you're gone from family and friends and whatnot for a longer period of time, but you get the bye after that second game as well, which is necessary, I think, to kind of recover from that. So, and the other thing that I think is really important with this, and this is what happened last season with the Jets game in London, is it's happening early in the season. It's in the first quarter of the season. So you really, you can recover. If you drop both of those games across the pond, it's not like your season is completely tanked.
Yeah.
Even if you're 1-4 or 2-3 at that point going into the bye week, it's not oh man, well, let's tank for a draft pick. JJ McCarthy's not the one. Let's move on.
Let's be honest. Teams go 0-2, and immediately their fans are like, "Oh, the season's gone." Tank for Tua or whatever.
Fans do, but not the team, right? Yeah. And I mean, we saw that two seasons ago with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins went down, Justin Jefferson, JJ, that is, went down, and they were still playing for a playoff spot in week 17 and week 18. So I think teams are in it until the bitter end, until it's mathematically impossible for them to make the playoffs. And I think that's the kind of the beauty of the league too, is really nobody's really counted out until week 12, week 13, week 14, and that's if you're really bad.
Yeah.
And then if you're in the middle of the pack, it's not until 14, 15, 16 that you're counted out, and then a lot of teams are still in it until the bitter end, week 17 and 18.
Yeah, so I think the league has done a good job of adjusting like divisional games to make it so that you could still be in it until the long run. Plus, also, if a team gets out of it mathematically or close to it, players are still incentivized to play well selfishly because most of them have incentives in their contracts for stats. So they still want to play well. And, if a guy needs to rush for 150 yards to get to 1,000 to give him another $1 million bonus, that 150 yards could help you win again, So, but back to the abroad games.
Because you had a different opinion than I did, and I kind of took over there.
No, it's fine. I really wasn't for it. I didn't logistically, I just didn't like it. I still don't. It is what it is. I'm not mad about it anymore. Like we can't change it. The NFL doesn't care about my opinion. I think ultimately it'll be fun storyline to follow. Yeah, like you said, if they lose both, that's just 2 games within the first 5 that they could bounce back from. We'd have the bye week to get that rough taste out of our mouth, and then lo and behold, they go and host the reigning Super Bowl champions after that. It's kind of a gauntlet after the...
It is. The four games after that road trip are a total gauntlet because you have the defending Super Bowl champs, Eagles at home. Then you travel to LA, which is always kind of a toss-up. I said a lot last year, like, oh, these West Coast road trips tend to be bad for the Vikings. And then they went out there and, at least in one of the games, turned out to be pretty good, but then at the end of the season it turned out to be pretty bad.
Last year the Vikings only lost to 2 teams. One of them they lost to, both of them they lost to twice. Yeah. And it was, they lost to the Rams both times. One was in LA. And then the other one had to be moved to Arizona, but that was still moving to the West Coast timeline. So that's still not easy. So the Vikings have not had a lot of luck recently with going to the West Coast timeline. So again, my final thoughts on the abroad trip. My biggest thing is if somebody gets hurt and you have to quick bring on a guy to the roster, like that logistically would be a nightmare to try to find a guy that even could physically get to you if he needed to fill a roster spot. But it'll be okay. Every team has a couple of rough patches in their schedule, and I'm sure if we really analyzed the Vikings schedule long enough, we'd find a couple of seemingly easy patches. It is what it is. You can only play the teams that you're given, and it'll be a good season. I'm excited for it.
I think that is the rough patch. I think the 2 international games followed by those 4 games afterwards, Philly, at LA, at Detroit, and Baltimore. Those Baltimore at home, November 9th, week 10, that kind of ends that long stint. But those 6 games are tough. Yeah. It's tough to play internationally. It's even tougher to play internationally 2 games in a row.
Although I will say last year when the Jaguars, because I think they're the first ones to do it 2 games in a row, they lost their first game and then won their second game. So
it's and there's just not a big enough sample size to really know like what'll happen. And the Vikings will be the first ones to do it in 2 different countries back-to-back weeks. So that'll be interesting.
3 different countries.
But then, you're right. Sorry. But 2 different countries on the road trip.
I'm being a turd.
But then to come back and play the Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl, then to go to the West Coast on a Thursday night and play the Chargers, then to go to the Lions, who beat you twice last year and made it to the NFC Championship, then to go to the host the Baltimore Ravens, who made the AFC Championship, if I'm not mistaken, right? This last season?
I think so.
Were they in the AFC Championship?
Wasn't it the Bills?
No, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, you're right.
I don't.
But they were in the playoffs, and they're a really good team. So, anyways, regardless, the Ravens are still a good team and a force to be reckoned with on the AFC side. So, yeah, you're right. The Bills and the Chiefs.
But either way, the Ravens they've been a tough team ever since Lamar, decided to be actually a decent quarterback, not just a pretty good running back. One sneaky game, I think a lot of people are going to look over, and I have a reason for this. This isn't just my take. That week 1 game, Monday Night Football at Chicago. JJ McCarthy's, unless he gets injured again, first start as an NFL quarterback away at Soldier Field. And so I'm gonna kind of out myself, a little bit of an embarrassing thing that happened. last evening, I had a great time talking for about 45 minutes with friend of the show, Dustin Baker. We talk about him all the time. If we really wanted to go through, we probably have a 80 episode streak of mentioning his name, stuff like that. But I talked with Dustin Baker for quite a while. That was supposed to be like a full on most of our episode today. Unfortunately, I didn't hit record. So Dustin and I had a really nice video chat that was just for me and Dustin. So Dustin, I would like to, I've apologized to you for that mishap privately on the show. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I hope it wasn't as much of a waste of a time as I think it might have been. But I had a lot of fun talking with Dustin. All that to say, he said a sneaky game, and he talked me into believing it too, is that Chicago Bears game. Soldier Field for the Vikings is always up and down. You never know what's going to happen. I think one saving grace, he did kind of mention in this conversation that nobody will ever hear because it wasn't recorded. He mentioned how the field's always crappy there, which I think for the first game of the season, at most they'll have played, one or two preseason games there before. So I think the field should be okay for Monday Night Football week 1.
Unless it's like rained a bunch and then it's a total slap house, which was week 1 either last year or 2 years ago. And they were like, it was 2 years ago. Justin Fields was doing like the slip and slide
against the 49ers. Yeah. So I think field conditions, barring weather, should be okay. But yeah, I agree with Dustin that Soldier Field for the Vikings has always been weird. And he mentioned like you could have a year where the Vikings are like the best ever. And then they like either, barely win like 13-9 against the Bears in Soldier Field, or they get like blown out weirdly. And then on the flip side, the Vikings could be horrible and then they like blow out the Bears in Soldier Field, or just barely squeak by. So that's going to be a weird one, and to have it start off the season like it'll be fun, it'll be nice, but it is kind of weird.
On-air production meeting, real quick.
It's the red button that I hit for recording, right?
No, that's not what I'm going to talk about. The Vikings are 1-0 when you and I have attended a game at Soldier Field. Oh. We should maybe pencil that one in as a game to possibly look into.
We can look into it, but Monday night to start the season in Soldier Field, that won't be a cheap game. I'll tell you that.
You're probably not lying.
Ben Johnson's debut as an NFL head coach, that'll probably be a pricey ticket, but I'm okay with looking into it.
We'll look into it. We don't have to commit to anything right now, but we should pencil that one in. That would be a lot of fun. That's something I would take a day off of work for.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. Well, Soldier Field, I think, is the closest to us NFL stadium.
Geographically, yes. We can get there in about 3 hours.
Oh, easily. Within less than.
We could work Monday, make it there for the game, and then we'd have to take Tuesday off.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, I think that Bears game will be kind of weird this whole season. So one thing Dustin, kind of finished our unrecorded conversation asking me is he brought up how specifically myself, I was pretty high on the Vikings this time last year. Mm-hmm. I was thinking like, yeah, Sam Darnold, he's got something. KOC, he's turning into a QB whisperer. He's definitely solidified himself as that now. But this time last year, he was kind of like, oh, we can do it. Look what he did with Josh Dobbs. So Dustin brought up how I was pretty high on the Vikings to the point that he said when he like logged off of joining us one time before the season, I said, 12 wins for the Vikings this year. He logged off and was like, man, that Austin guy, he's kind of crazy. But he asked me, how am I feeling about the Vikings right now? And I'm going to ask you that. How are you feeling about the Vikings right now? You don't have to. You can say like a win total, but we won't commit to it. We'll have our episode where we do that. I'll give you a rough win total.
I'm not going to commit to a win total right now. We'll do our pick'em episode like we always do, probably July-ish. That's typically when we've done that the last couple of years now. I'm very optimistic about the Vikings. Honestly, more optimistic now than I was at this point last year, going in with Sam Darnold and whatnot. So to put a win total on it, I can't do that.
No, yeah. And if you set a win number right now, nobody can hold you to it.
I think one of the things I remember talking about 2 weeks ago was this whole strength of schedule, like who's got the toughest and who's got the easiest schedule in the league. And the Vikings have one of the tougher schedules, but I looked at that a little more carefully, and guess who else has some of the toughest schedules?
The rest of the NFC North.
The rest of the NFC North. The NFC North was one of the toughest divisions, and we have to play all of those teams twice every year. It's a given. It's a built-in part of that schedule. So I think the NFC North continues to be this like black and blue division. It's been known to be that for a long time. Honestly, like, you know, during a lot of our like growing up and kind of even into like high school and college and early adulthood for us, like it was pretty clear like the Vikings were pretty good, the Packers were pretty good there for a while. Aaron Rodgers unfortunately dominated for a while, and then, you know, the Bears had a season or two.
They went to a Super Bowl at one point.
At one point, but like the Bears and the Lions have always been kind of, you know, second rate, and the Vikings and the Packers have always been up at the top. I think what we saw last year will be similar this year. At least at the beginning of the season. And I don't disagree with you that first game at Chicago, Monday Night Football, Week 1, will be tough.
I think it'll just be weird. It could be like one of those where, sorry, I don't mean to overtake this, but it could be one of those where like the team who wins technically like dominated and got like 500 more yards than the other team, but only won by like 2. You know, it could be a weird game,
or it could be like that Raiders game a couple years ago. The Vikings won 3-0. Like it could be something like that. Like it could be the conditions could be terrible in Chicago. It could be windy. They had that one game that was like 45 mile an hour winds with 60 mile an hour gusts, and like field goals were going like, you know, whatever. So, anyways. I'm really optimistic. I'm high on the Vikings right now. I don't know really any fans out there that aren't high on the Vikings. I think you've made some good points in some of our recent episodes about the Lions and how they're going to struggle this year. Their coordinators are gone, and Dan Campbell is not the same coach without those two guys coordinating the offense and the defense the way that they have. And I don't think the guys that they've replaced those two with will be as good as the two guys that are gone.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to say it now. I think the Vikings are a playoff team.
Okay.
I think I can confidently say that. I think they make the playoffs. I think they made the playoffs last year. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs last year, and I think we expected more out of them in the playoffs. I remember sitting here talking about like, oh, they moved that game from LA to Arizona because of the wildfires. This is huge for the Vikings. It's basically a home game now. That wasn't the case.
No, yeah, they got embarrassed.
But I don't know. I think the Vikings make the playoffs. Where they go from there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think they make the playoffs. I'm comfortable saying that right now.
So I'll just say, I'll bury the lead here. I agree with you. I think they make the playoffs. My answer to Dustin was probably better than I'll say it now, because, you know, it's always better the first time you say something. Even though you didn't record it. I told Dustin, like, it's hard to feel less excited about the Vikings now than I felt last year. The biggest hinge point is JJ McCarthy, barring injury, because if 3 key guys on the Vikings get injured, there's your season anyways, including JJ McCarthy. But if everybody's healthy and plays as expected, I think JJ McCarthy is the only question mark. Like, yes, we're all excited for him, and you got guys like Thor Nystrom who like basically have tattooed JJ's name to his face because he's so excited about him. But like, the reality is we don't know. He was successful in college with a good coach and a great team, and he's only ever been successful, but we have no idea how he's going to be in the NFL. I believe in him. I think you believe in him. Any actual Vikings fan should believe in JJ McCarthy. We have no reason not to. If nothing else, for Kevin O'Connell should be able to squeeze all of the juice out of JJ McCarthy that we need. So yes, I feel as optimistic about the Vikings now as I did a year ago, and I ultimately predicted 12 wins. I'll follow your lead. I won't say a win total because there is a couple of gauntlets in here and you never know. But I will say playoffs are definitely in hand. I'd be extremely disappointed. No matter how JJ McCarthy plays this year, I'd be disappointed if the team misses the playoffs. And I get the sense from my unrecorded conversation with Dustin that he feels the same way. And his big thing was the defense. Dustin said, if the Vikings defense, they were elite last year. And if they're half as good as they were last year in 2025, that means they're going to be like the 8th or 9th overall defense. They won't be like bottom of the league defense. Having an 8th or 9th overall defense is almost enough to get you to the playoffs anyways, because then you just need the offense to get out of the way and score a few field goals if you have a defense that won't let other teams score. So I feel like Dustin Baker's optimism right now is coming mostly from the defense and then Kevin O'Connell's ability to squeeze everything out of JJ that he needs to. And I'm right there with him.
And I think I would add to that, yes, to all of that, and additionally, the health and the effectiveness of the offensive line. Obviously, that line has almost completely flipped over with only a few players coming back, and Christian Darrisaw, we don't really know. I don't know that we have a timeline on his return. Yeah. I think we're all kind of maybe, optimistically hoping he comes back in October, but it could be November. You just don't know. But all of that aside, you've made some key additions on that offensive line. You have a new center. You've got a new guard.
Two new guards,
excuse me, and a new kind of guard tackle, right?
So that's what I'm saying, 2 new guards. I think you're referencing Donovan Jackson, the first round pick. He is like a guard tackle. He may end up starting games at tackle depending on how Darrisaw is doing. But yeah, I mean, I think getting to your point, the Vikings offensive line is going to have at least 3 new full-time starters in 2025 as opposed to 2024. And
I think it's going to be their health and their effectiveness that will be key.
Yep, absolutely.
Because we've seen that, we've been doing this podcast for a little over 2 years now, and like we've constantly complained about, Ed Ingram kept stepping on Kirk Cousins' toes, and Garrett Bradbury was just undersized and he just got bowled over.
We're Bradbury fans, but
but like those were legitimate concerns, and I would say we were fans of Ed Ingram too. Like, sure, whoever the coaches decide to put out there, we're going to support, and like I would wear their jersey if I went to a game for sure, 100%. But it's hard to ignore those issues, and so that's why I say, like, Kwesi and KOC made a concerted effort to go after that position group in particular in free agency and the draft, and that's going to be the proof in the pudding, I think, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Can they stay healthy, number one, because they need to in order to be effective, and then 2, can they be effective on the field? Can they actually do the job better than the guys that came before him? Absolutely. I think if that's the case, if they can stay healthy and they can be effective, you told me this is what Dustin said. I wasn't there, and I'm not trying to steal his words, but I think that's the caveat that leads to this Dustin-ism that I'll play off of a little bit, that JJ doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson. He just has to be decent. Yeah, right. He just has to stand there, manage the game, and get the ball in the right hands, and the line and those other skill players will take care of the rest.
Absolutely, for sure. And a part of that, I do feel like an idiot for not recording my conversation with Dustin properly. It really was a good time hanging out with him. But I want to make sure listeners, watchers, please go check out all of Dustin's socials. I think he's at Dust Baker on Twitter. He's definitely at VikingsTerritory.com. VikingsTerritory.com might be the Skol Hop's main
it's one of my top
knowledge bases of Vikings knowledge. You check out all of his stuff. We'll try to link his stuff below. Dustin, again, I'm sorry for messing that up, but we will have him on. He did before he realized I didn't hit record. He did mention we should have him on here in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks sometime soon. But yeah, definitely check out all of his stuff. You will enjoy it if you're a Vikings fan.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say even an NFL fan that just is curious about what's going on with the Vikings, because his stuff is very Viking centric, but he does a good job of, understanding everything that happens in the league as well. So definitely check him out for sure. Would you recommend people check out this beer?
1,000%.
Yes.
The more I have it, so my first couple of sips, I enjoyed it, but it definitely, I think you said it, a very pronounced amber flavor, very strong amber flavor. The more I'm getting into it, the less heavy hitting that is, and the more well-rounded this beer is. It's a good amber flavor. I'm noticing the hint of hoppiness, but if you hate hoppiness and like ambers, this is still a good beer for you. I like it a lot. I wish we had 2, 3, 4, 5 more because it's a really good one. Just like all of Adventurous's beer. I think, man, we are so lucky around here to have some solid breweries.
We've got some really good beer.
Not just in
here.
Iowa, but even specifically in our immediate area, and then of course in Iowa too. But yeah, Adventurous, they haven't missed for me.
Nope. Agreed, for sure. Well, it's hard to beat a good beer. It's hard to beat good conversation about the Vikings.
Yeah.
Maybe best episode yet.
Maybe. Skol.
Skol.